Hi everyone, my name is Nikki Bell and I'm here today at Newcastle Startup Week to talk about my learnings from my first year of freelance. And hopefully these learnings will help you as you plan to get started on your own freelance or business building mission. A little bit about me before we start. So I was asked here, first of all, by Paul about my work through Charity Nikki. I'm a fundraising consultant for obviously the charity sector. I work with charity organizations across the world to help them with project management, rapid testing, peer-to-peer fundraising, with strategies, those sorts of things. I've been doing that for almost a year, so my first anniversary is next month. But as of January, I became a business owner, co-founder and director of the tech startup Fundraising Everywhere, which is a virtual conference and event and networking platform for the charity sector. And as you can imagine, that was a well-timed business launch in the right niche for obviously what was to come over the coming months, which wasn't great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey from freelancer to business owner. And another business that I look after, which is more of a little hobby right now, is Pizza for Losers, which again is for the charity sector. And it's an event where people get together, they share their failures from fundraising, and we all eat pizza because, I mean, do you need an excuse to eat more pizza? So I'm going to talk to you a bit today about what I've been doing over the past 12 months. I am here in the comment section. So if you do have any questions for me, please pop them in there and I'll be happy to answer them. And of course, you can get in touch with me on other social media sites as well. And I'll be happy to help you through there. So my first lesson from my first year freelance was to not get boxed in. And I've heard you get like bonus points for putting dogs in presentations. So here you go. When I first went freelance, which actually wasn't by choice, I lost my job and was thrown into freelancing to be able to pay the bills. But actually it worked out being 100% the best thing for me, and I've had a brilliant year. The main bit of advice that was given to me by other freelancers in the sector was to find my niche. Now, for anyone who's familiar with fundraising would know that if I made my niche community fundraising, I'd be pretty poor pretty fast, because it isn't an area of fundraising that charities proactively invest heavily in, not prior to COVID anyway. Obviously, we may see a shift in this now as communities come together virtually to get through the pandemic. So I niched myself in the charity sector. So obviously what I've talked about with Fundraising Everywhere, with Pizza for Losers, I know the charity sector really well. So instead of niching myself into one particular kind of work, I used my knowledge, I used my networks to actually make my niche charities, because it helps me to win more clients, because I understand what it is that they're trying to achieve. I understand about supporter engagement. I understand about strategy. I understand about the charity sector. So that for me was my niche. So use your specialism to increase your visibility. So what I did instead is I used my niche as a community fundraiser to write more blogs, to be accepted to speak at conferences and conventions, to be invited onto podcasts, which then exposed me to more of the sector. And then I was able to have conversations and build relationships up with people to be able to do more work. And in fact, a lot of the work that I've done since being freelance hasn't really been in the community fundraising space. So I'm really glad that I didn't niche myself. I've been doing a lot of project management and doing a lot of training and virtual work through Fundraising Everywhere. So yeah, I'm glad I did that. And the one thing that almost stopped me from not niching myself was that inner critic telling me that I didn't know anything beyond community fundraising. So if you're thinking that you have to niche yourself because you don't want to do anything else in case you fail, then you need to really, elevate that inner champion and try and silence that inner critic. Because genuinely, if you'll be surprised what skills and resources that you can bring to a business, to an organization that they're feeling that they're not that great at. So use your niche to elevate, but don't necessarily just get stuck into that way of working. step out of your comfort zone. And if a client or a potential client comes to you with a piece of work, it's totally fine to reframe that and say, look, you know, this is what you're asking for, but actually through my expertise, this is what I think could benefit you in this way. This is how I fit in with that. Is that a conversation that we can have? And don't feel like you have to accept every job that comes your way. I know in the early days you panic and you think, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to eat. I'm going to be living, you know, off tins of beans for a few months. But honestly, have faith. The work will come. And the last thing that you want to do is reduce your day rate and be stuck doing jobs that make you miserable. So definitely stick in there, and as well elevate. You know, if there's jobs that you can't do, that's totally fine. Refer to other businesses and people maybe in your sector, because then that comes back to you as well. I'm a big fan of a rising tide lifts all boats. So try and head into your business with that same frame of mind. If you start your business and start your work with scarcity thinking, you're going to have a horrendous year. It'll be miserable for you, and you won't have that crew. Another big lesson for me is to diversify your income. Do not rely on one big client, one big income source, because if the current situation has taught us anything, is that that's a pretty risky space to be in. If there is a part of your job that takes a lot of human time, I can't think of any other way to phrase it, but it's taking a lot of you being in there, find a way that you can turn that virtual, or that you can automate that, so that your clients and your customers can access that regularly, while you can be off and building relationships on the projects that are going to bring in the bigger pieces of work. Have conversations with people, find out the gaps that they have in their business, and try and full plan of what might be coming. And again, I think the current situation is an opportunity for business owners, because it gives us an excuse to reach out to those potential customers and ask them about the challenges that they're facing. What are they planning for in the coming months? And then what you can do is find a way of how you can help them overcome and get through those challenges. And then you can be there for them on the other side. So definitely, you know, I'm still bringing work in during the pandemic, and it's because I've tried to think, you know, 4 or 5 months ahead. So a project that I was running about a month before lockdown was around testing like DIY products in the charity sector, which is where supporters do their own fundraising in the community. And I said, hey, how about we test a Facebook Live and see how this would translate on the internet, because I knew, you know, something was coming where the more traditional types of fundraising wasn't going to work. A big piece of advice that was given to me at the beginning, and I still do it now, is to save and pay myself a wage. So it doesn't matter what my monthly income is, the amount that I put into my personal bank account and the amount of disposable income that I have per month stays the same. And that has been amazing for me, because if when I had a good December and a good January, I was off, you know, sailing the Caribbean, and probably would have had to have been put in quarantine when I came home, I'd be in a pretty tough position now. But because I've saved and paid myself a wage, I've actually went into the lockdown having enough savings where if I didn't bring in any more work for the rest of the year, I'd actually be okay. And again, going back to my earlier lesson of being miserable by taking jobs that you really don't want to do, you don't feel like it's your skill set, I've avoided having to do any of that. So definitely look at that when you're starting out. Have a pipeline. I think before I was a consultant, I was working in charities, working with charities for almost 10 years. I was a relationship fundraiser, and pipelines were critical to that. And I think that's definitely helped me when moving across into business owning. So I have a pipeline of contacts and networks that I know, just little notes about them. And I have a separate sheet where it tells me, you know, have I had an initial conversation with them about doing some potential work? Have I submitted a proposal? You know, what stage I'm at. And that actually, it's not only great for building a business, but it's nice as well for those days where you feel like, oh my God, I'm crap at this, like nothing's working. You can go back at your pipeline and go, actually, do you know what? I've won 6 proposals out of 3. You know, I've still got 10 potential clients on there. I'm doing okay. And, you know, that's really nice to look at. Also, bonus tip, I have a success folder in my Gmail. So anytime someone sends me a nice piece of feedback or a great testimonial, obviously I get that plastered all over the website. But I also put it in the folder as well, so that if I'm having a bit of a rough day, I can go look at it and be like, actually, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. This was actually a game changer for me. So I was wondering when I went freelance, like, how do people do all of this? Like, how do they have enough time in the day? And the current situation with the lockdown and COVID has been critical for this. So outsource where you can. If there is a job that is taking more of your time to do than a professional could do it, outsource it. Because let's just say you charge £70 an hour and it would take you 2 hours, I don't know, to make a podcast intro. Why would you do that yourself when you could pay somebody £50 to do it? So think of your time as money and outsource where somebody can add more quality to that and make it a bit quicker. So at the moment with our business, Fundraising Everywhere, we outsource the social media management. We've just brought on a talent manager. We've just recruited that person this month. And what they do is they work with our clients to bring in their content for the platform, so that we can then use our time to go off and build relationships with people who will then use the platform. It's massive for me at the moment. I've got a 4-year-old son, so I've only got 4 hours a day to work in. So I'm just outsourcing left and right. And actually, we need somebody to come and do our mailings. If there's anybody watching this who is thinking of getting started with mailing and copywriting, then hit me up, because I need some help. That is not my area. It's totally fine. When I first started thinking about owning a business, and to be honest with you, for me, I never actually saw myself in that space. I always thought there was a type of person that owned a business, especially a tech startup. I had in my mind this image of what those people were like, and it definitely, wasn't me. This northerner from a working class background. We don't own businesses, but actually it's a load of tosh, isn't it? It's totally like your inner critics keeping you back from what you can actually achieve. And there's this idea that if you're not fully into it, you haven't quit your job and got a second mortgage, and then it means you're not passionate. But that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's totally fine to test and try things on the side, see what the response is before fully committing to that. So Fundraising Everywhere has actually ended up being a really successful business. So we run our own virtual conferences through the platform. But what we realized in January was that there was a big market out there in the charity sector for supporting people to host their own virtual content, which obviously exploded with COVID, because a lot of people want to do things like this, but they don't want to do the background stuff, and it makes them a little bit anxious to do. So we're like, look, pay us and we'll do it for you. We can personalize your page. We'll be behind the scenes making sure everything's on screen where it needs to be. We can personalize it, And even though that's really successful, like this year with the projects that we've got in the pipeline already, so they've been confirmed, we've already, surpassed the 6-figure mark. And we've still got over 6 months worth of work to do. And I still haven't fully committed myself to Fundraising Everywhere. I'm still doing my consultancy on the side, because for me, that makes me feel confident. I like, talking before about not relying on one source of income. We don't know what's going to happen. And at the moment, because I have time to do both, I'm going to do both. And then I'm saving, I'm paying a wage. And actually the work from my consultancy elevates the Fundraising Everywhere platform, because it's all about the charity sector. It's all about people in the charity sector. So that's helping me in that way as well. And remember, don't box yourself in, and try different things, try different areas of work, have conversations with different people, find out where their gaps are, and then go there, because that's exactly what we did as well. The Fundraising Everywhere was built because a lot of the training and work was London centric. So we were like, right, let's make it virtual. And we've created this lovely little community of people who just really appreciate that support. So yes, love it. All right. So this point, be brutal. It might be fun. It might be exciting to do, but if it doesn't make you money, you've just got to cut it. So I mentioned about Pizza Faloozas earlier. I love doing it. It's crucial for the charity sector. but I need to find a different way of doing this. Otherwise, it isn't something that I can continue doing long term. Because with fundraising everywhere, and with the consultancy, that is the biggest earner, just pizza for losers just doesn't really fit into that. So just think as well about, what you're doing. Do you have a blog? Do you have a website? Can you really fully commit your time to keeping that updated and keeping those resources going through there? And if not, you've got to let it go, because it's not a failure. A lot of people stick in with these things because they think, oh, I've started this podcast, and if I stop it after 6 months, people will think I've failed. But actually the real failure is if something isn't working and it's not making you money. The failure is sticking in and keep doing it anyway because you're worried about what other people will think. Okay, so you've got to be brutal here. And the same as well, those jobs, those opportunities that come up, it feels really difficult to say no. But trust me, for every bad client or every not so right job that you say no to, there will be something amazing for you that will come into your inbox or come through the telephone on the next week. But as well, don't be brutal with yourself. It is hard in the early stages to set things up. You will see things on social media where everyone seems to be nailing it, except you. But of course, you've got to remember to take those things with a pinch of salt, because you're only seeing the highlight reel. And actually, even still, if people are celebrating on social media, then fine, because yes, you're seeing that post on LinkedIn on a Friday and it says, we've just won this bit of business, we've just won this contract, it's thousands of pounds. But what you haven't seen is that 12 months of, getting things wrong, getting things rejected, all of the late nights and early mornings of, trying to get things off the ground. So if you are in that stage of thinking about getting started, then honestly, just take time out to reflect, look at the bigger picture, look at those conversations that you've had, look at the business that you've built, and celebrate those little things along the way. Another important point as well, just before I wrap up, is to not lose focus. Now, when we think success, we think like loads of money, we think having a fancy office, like a big team. But for me, that's not the case. Like for me, it's working with people who understand and appreciate the work that I do. It's being at home to be able to read to my little boy and put him to bed, although I don't have a lot of choice at the moment, so kind of hoping on the other side of it that I can get out of that sometimes, because it's been 60 days. But yeah, you've just got to think about, what is your end goal? Why are you setting up this business? What is it that you want to achieve from it? And just never lose sight of that, and don't get distracted by what other people are doing, because for every minute that you spend spying on the competition, looking at their website, going through their social media feeds, is a minute that you're not spending on perfecting yourself and your own business. So don't try to get distracted by other people. And I guess the most important thing about getting started is that if I never lost my job last year in June, whatever it was, I would not be doing this now. I may not have had fundraising everywhere, definitely wouldn't have been doing the consultancy. And one of my biggest pieces of advice to you is to not wait for a catastrophe to take action. A lot of people, they say, oh, I started this business because I lost my job, or a relative was poorly, or I went through a breakup. If you have a great idea and it's lit a fire in your belly, and you genuinely think that there's something there and that it can help people, start it as a side hustle, test it, see how it goes, build those relationships, have that pipeline, speak to people, find your niche to elevate, but then obviously make sure that you're diversifying from that and finding a way to automate and elevate what it is that you're working on, and just go for it. Because the last thing that you want is to be back at this conference next year, although do come back because it is wonderful. But the last thing that you want is for next May to still be thinking about it, or even worse, still thinking about it and somebody else has already got there. Okay, so just go for it. Honestly, that's probably my biggest piece of advice. So my contact details are here if you want to ask me any more questions, if you want to find out more about what I'm doing. Like I say, I am here in the comment section as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I do hope that you enjoy the rest of your Newcastle Startup Week. I do hope that we all get to see each other later on in the year. And more than anything, I hope that you're safe and well and happy and that you're managing to take time out to look after yourself and to work on your business. A big thank you to Paul as well for inviting me here, and I will see you soon.